Alright, the time has come to discuss A Quiet Place Day 1, not directed by John Krasinski like the first two were. This was instead directed by Michael Sarnowski, who last did 2021's indie drama film starring Nick Cage called Pig, which I thought was excellent. Now he's taking a stab at a bigger budget thriller that is now becoming a part of a franchise that I don't really think needed to be a franchise in the first place. I did have some concerns going into this movie because I don't think we really need a prequel movie, considering the second Quiet Place basically showed us what Day 1 looked like, at least from the perspective of the main family. This scraps that. We're following completely different characters in New York City. Quite frankly, the 2018 original is kind of a bona fide horror classic to me. It took some great familial themes, awesome characters with great acting, and inserted it into this genius premise. I'm not saying this is the first time we've seen a movie about creatures that hunt with sound. I know there's Pitch Black among many other movies that have tried it before, but I think it was one of the best executed versions of that premise that we've ever gotten. The second one definitely lost that scare factor a little bit, but it still had those characters in it that I found to be so engaging, and I was constantly curious as to how they were going to end that one. And I think they're still planning to make a third one to cap off that trilogy, but this once again scraps that. We now follow Lupita Nyong'o's character, Sam, as well as another character who was a complete stranger to her, Eric, played by Joseph Quinn. It's really tough to discuss what I want to discuss about this movie without giving some mild spoilers because the plot is so bare bones. So if you want to know literally nothing, I would suggest not even watching this review. But again, I'm going to give very mild plot spoilers. Remember when Fear the Walking Dead premiered back in like 2015 and it promised to be the show that shows us the origin of the virus that led to the dead rising? And it kind of did that for the first season, and then it literally just turned into The Walking Dead with different characters. That was my concern with A Quiet Place Day 1. And it is kind of like that. The first 30 minutes shows us how these aliens arrived on Earth, and it's them wreaking havoc. We've got cars flying everywhere, explosions, people getting taken out left and right. And then the rest of the movie is a very small-scale, character-based storyline in which two people are sneaking around, trying to avoid making noise. I gotta say, it is starting to feel a little bit stale. Like, I don't know how much more gas this franchise truly has in the tank. Now, I didn't dislike this movie. I really didn't. There are some great things in it, particularly the two lead performances, which I think absolutely carry it. I mean, we all know Lupita Nyong'o is capable of some incredible acting chops, and she shows them off here big time, especially considering the characters can't really speak to each other much. There's very little dialogue. I think that goes without saying, because if they do talk, they're going to die. But in terms of technical elements, I think the acting is great. The cinematography looks quite solid. The direction, all that stuff works fine. The problem is the story is so bare bones that you can tell they weren't really sure how to make a full movie out of this. There's a first act that has clear goals and ideas. There's a third act that kind of brings everything full circle, and everything in the middle is just stuff that we've seen before, but reskinned in New York City. But it's obvious that they didn't shoot all of it in New York City, and much of it is just a soundstage. Now, I know it would take a pretty massive budget to take the first act of this movie and stretch it out and make it the entire film, but I think I would have been more entertained by that. Go the aliens route and just make it a big, massive action movie with large-scale stakes and everything. I will say, though, despite the repetitive nature, there are definitely still moments of tension where I was not sure if characters were going to make it out of the situation alive or not. And there is a very human-driven story in this, just like the previous two films. Now, here's where I'm going to get into some mild spoilers again. Sam used to listen to jazz with her father, and then she would go eat pizza with him afterwards. And since the world's ending, she's like, you know what? I want to go have myself a slice of pizza in case I don't live out another day. So that's pretty much the goal of the two characters in the second half of the movie, is they're trying to get to this pizza place so that they can have a slice. I think that stripped down nature hurts the movie because the middle chunk is just so painfully slow. And it would be one thing if we had other characters involved, or maybe they revealed some more information to us about the creatures, kind of expand the lore a little bit, you know, but it doesn't do that. This is a film that plays it safe and certainly sticks to that comfort zone that it's crafted with the last two films, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It does have its moments of tension for sure. But once again, because the characters can't talk to each other, I think the actors carry the emotional stakes and do a lot of the heavy lifting. The jump scares are definitely becoming predictable, though. It's the same thing every time. Everybody's quietly moving through an area, somebody will bump into something or knock something over, it makes a loud sound, and everyone's like, shh, shh. Okay, we're all good. Boom. Boom, there's the jump scare. It's the classic delayed jump scare. They use it almost every time, and I don't find the monsters that scary anymore, especially since we've seen them so many times with lots of close-ups. I feel like I've been more critical of this film than I intended to be when I sat down to record this. It's really not bad at all. In fact, if you were to pay matinee price to go see this on a rainy Sunday, I think you'll have yourself a decent time. That's the best I can say about it. It's a decent film. It's well made. It's one of those films that exists in a franchise that feels like it's stretching itself a bit thin, but I enjoyed it well enough, so I'm going to give A Quiet Place Day 1 3 stars. If for nothing else, go watch it for Lupita Nyong'o and Joseph Quinn, both of whom are excellent. So those are my thoughts on A Quiet Place Day 1. Quite frankly, this is kind of what I expected, just an all-around solid film that doesn't bring anything new to the table as far as this franchise goes, but definitely does a decent enough job of sticking to those staple tropes. As always, I encourage you to drop down into the comments and let me know what you thought of the film if you do see it. And while you're at it, give me your ranking of all 3 Quiet Place movies. For me, the first is definitely the best. Second one's pretty solid, and then this is just below that. So we are kind of on that diminishing returns trend, but I'm curious to see what the community thinks. Hit that like button and subscribe while you're at it if you want to see more content like this, as always, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. See you later.